Hey y'all, I decided that for this particular video, instead of just putting, footage of my lifts for the last week with like techno music or whatever in the background, to do a little bit more getting to know you kind of situation. Since I am still very new to YouTube and trying to kind of make my presence, I guess. Doing kind of this like little picture-in-picture at the bottom during the training footage to introduce you to myself and then kind of explain why I called this series, or whatever you want to call this, the rally. And there's a lot of different reasons. One is, there's kind of that overplayed like comeback thing that people go through when they leave a sport and then come back. I didn't necessarily leave a sport. I've kind of talked about this before, and I graduated veterinary school in 2015, and all through veterinary school, like, that's where I found powerlifting, that's where I found figure, that's how I got into everything. And then, that's a lot of time and energy in veterinary school that you use. You don't have a lot of time to do a lot of fun stuff. So I thought that I could transfer that into my internship because I was already doing a ton of stuff and really busy, so an internship shouldn't be any different. Moody is trying to destroy me right now. Cool. But that's not true. So I kind of made the mistake of trying to compete while in my internship. I had an inconsistent schedule. I barely slept. Oh my God, stop. I barely slept. My eating wasn't great, just because when you're running from case to case and you have 5 minutes to grab something to eat, you can't heat up your chicken, but you can definitely eat that like day-old slice of pizza that's been sitting out because it's right there. So it was just kind of a perfect storm of, I made a huge mistake and then competed twice during my internship, and both times the showings were really not that great. So this is more a rally to get back to where I was. And to talk a little bit about kind of ego, I guess. When I first started powerlifting, it was in Mississippi, which doesn't have a huge powerlifting community. I mean, you'd think that it did because we have people like, Ray Williams, who are phenomenally strong. And the family that kind of welcomed me into the Mississippi fitness community were the Harmons, Eve, Kevin, and Sierra. Sierra was actually the only other female I ever competed against prior to going to nationals. She was 12 at the time we first competed. I think I was 23 because I was too old to be a junior, or 24. She was 12, and she was a 8-time world record holder. Her squat was pretty much on par with mine. In the 200s at 110 pounds body weight. So they were phenomenal. They were really welcoming. And then Eve introduced me to her figure coach when I started doing figure. So all in all, just a great experience. But from the start, I was the only fish in the pond. And that can really do something to you, because when you're a new athlete in any sort of sport or any sort of hobby, you start out at the bottom of the totem pole, and I didn't. I started at the top of the totem pole. So that already kind of set me up for failure in the long run, because when I went out to compete against other people, I was so used to being the best that when I wasn't, it was really kind of upsetting for me. And that was, youth and inexperience and immaturity, thinking that, you need to be the best at everything you do. It's just kind of my personality type is, when I go into things, if I'm not immediately good at them, I don't tend to keep doing them. That's something that I've gotten much better about as I've gotten older. I'm 27 now, so I think a lot of people in the fitness community that are looked up to are in their early 20s, and who I was a year and a half ago and who I am now are two completely different people. So really, comparison is the thief of joy. I know that quote gets used a lot, but it's really, really true, because you don't need to compare yourself to other people. There are other people out there who are my motivation. I follow people on YouTube and Instagram that I really look up to, and I really like to see their progress, but seeing them progress doesn't take away from what I've done. And once I got to the point where I was kind of more in my career as opposed to just getting there, I realized that I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not going to be the biggest fish in the pond. I'm not going to be the, whatever. But that doesn't take away from anything that I've done. So basically, the rally is trying to get back to where I was before, because the goal is to beat the girl from before, and that girl is always going to be me. So while it was really upsetting to, you know, not hit numbers that I'd hit before, I mean, I went from a 160 bench to like struggling for 135, and that really upset me, which should be motivation to go forward, and instead it kind of put a damper on my training, and I just got into like this suck where I hated everything and I really wasn't excited about training anymore. So some changes that are going on that should make this transition a little bit easier. One is, as you can see, we're moving. Bought a house, moving on Friday. Today is Wednesday. I get my days mixed up because I work overnight, so really I have no concept of days ever. And moving on Friday or Saturday. I get the keys on Friday, so we'll see kind of how things line up. And gonna have a home gym, which won't be set up right away just because we're missing things like the bench, and then we only have 45, so we don't have any change plates, but that should make things easier. Second, starting my job, I only work 13 to 14 shifts a month, which some people are like, how is that a job? I work 12-hour shifts, but most of the time they're longer than 12 hours, so it's like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But like, you get there a little bit early, and then you round on cases, and then you know, do stuff all day, and then sure enough, an hour before you're supposed to get off, like 8 things come in because that's when people wake up. But in any case, you know, some days I'm stuck at work until like 11 in the morning, or like I was on days for a few weeks, and there was one day where I was there until 11 p.m., so 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and it's like, you really don't want to train after that. So having the access to a gym at my house is going to be much different and much more exciting. And then also just that consistent schedule, you know, not having to go back and forth between days and nights, getting used to just the grind, and then having more access to everything. A little bit of update on other things. I'm trying to get down to the 138 class. I think I've talked about this before. I was 145.6 this morning, which is the lowest I've been in a while. I went to California this past weekend, so I was really worried that things weren't going to work out too well, just because I couldn't really track macros. We were at this Airbnb that had like no service. And then also it was for a wedding, and we were at California, or Universal Studios. Oh my gosh, Moody, chill out. So I didn't really have the will to track. That's kind of the caveat there, is wanting to track and actually tracking, two different things. But it ended up being that I came back pretty much the same weight as when I left, so just gonna keep on keeping on. And then all this Pokemon going, I've been walking like 6-7 miles a day, so that's pretty much it for this. I think that explains a little bit about why the rally and kind of where things are going. The week 3 training video is going to be a little weird and a little delayed, just because I took like a week off from the gym kind of unintentionally, just because I had those shifts where I stayed late a few days, and then also between moving and trying to get stuff together. I've done like 2 days of week 3 as of right now, and then I have 3 more days, which I'll pick up on Thursday after my overnight. So that's kind of a rundown. Hopefully I can use this as an opportunity to kind of get to know everyone a little bit better as I get like more into my YouTube channel and trying to grow it as a platform. Right now it's still very baby. I get like 3 to 10 views on a video, which is fine. It's the start. So this is a good way to get to know me, and I will see you guys in some later footage. Bye.